Okay, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the afternoon session for Ghoul School. I'm the executive director of the Nickel, Ellen Nguyen, and excited to, spooky season. It's my favorite time of year. We always think it's going to be relaxing for us at the Nickel. It's like, oh, the festival's done. It'll be a nice chill fall. But then the horror challenge rolls around and there's so much going on because everybody loves it so much, and we do too. And so we have this today, Ghoul School horror filmmaking workshops that have been running from 9 a.m. up until now. And tomorrow we have horror challenge screening marathon. There's no easy way to say that, but we have 117 films that we're going to be showing. Horror films from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. All day tomorrow on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And from the 9 years of past horror challenges. This is our 10th horror film challenge, 48-hour horror film challenge, coming up on October 8th to the 10th. And you can sign up at the Nickel Festival website, nickelfestival.com, and find out all that information. I'm excited. You're excited. And I'm joined here with Sandy May and Elizabeth Hicks, who are going to be your hosts for the next hour.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone. And and we have Adam Foran here with us this afternoon. Adam is gonna show us how to make our movie sound super spooky, super scary. We've done some horror acting workshops this morning, some writing, some directing, and of course, though, you have to make your film sound spooky and scary. So Adam is going to do that. He's award-winning composer and music producer. He's done work for television, film, and theater. So you are all in excellent hands. Adam, would you like to take it away?
Sure, thank you. That was very nice. So I had one thing sort of planned, which was that I was going to show you how to kind of change the pitch and timing of certain sounds. You can record things and then you can stretch them and slow them down, and that can make really spooky stuff out of just about anything. Unfortunately, for some reason, I can't get the two softwares to talk. Zoom and Reaper is the audio software that I use. But anyway, doesn't really matter. I can show you the concepts and we can talk about how all that works, and we'll just have to use our imagination a bit as for the final product. But I can tell you how you go about it and what kind of software you'd use. So I kind of assume that if you're this far into horror ghoul school or whatever, that you've probably used some video editing software before. That the idea of having a clip on a timeline and maybe deciding where the end of it is and stuff like that. Ellen, do you think is our audience about caught up with that type of stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so audio software is just the exact same thing, but it's just for working with sound. So I recommend that if you haven't done much with that you pick up this one called Reaper, which is free to get started with. They say if you make money with it, you buy the thing. But anyway, you guys can just download it and play with it as much as you want. And so apart from the normal thing of where, okay, I've got a clip of audio and it's recorded and I can decide how much of it I hear, right? Or maybe trim the beginning, or maybe take the whole thing and move it over, stuff like that. Turn the volume up and down. Really simple stuff. You can also these days stretch it. And so that really changes things. And so it's like, if I just say, you can take the audio and stretch it, and then I do that, then it's like, you can take the audio and stretch it. You guys all know this stuff, right? And you can squat it down too, and it's like, you take the audio, stretch it. The chipmunk thing. But so, it's a little fun with my voice, and I do actually use my voice in some stuff, like just going kind of thinking of those Tibetan throat singers. I can't really do it, but I'll just give you, it's like, if I go like, growly long stuff like that, stretch it out, and then you get this long tone that works for some things. Now, I have no idea what movies you guys are making. So if it's like bump scares, then any sound like you'd be surprised how even like a little drum from my honeymoon in the Bahamas. Oh yeah. But even a little drum like that, if you take that sound and record it right, here's right by the mic, and stretch it out, then it would be a lower pitch and it would have all this weirdness to it, you know? And maybe you have a big drum lying around and you could do that for your bump scares, or even like the tambourine kind of creeping up on you. Whoa! And you're like, stretch that out. Okay. So, I mean, that's just one trick. So I guess I should think clearly here, like what's the basic ideas of how you change the sound once you're into the software. So like you guys know about when in your editing software, you can change the amount of light in your scene. And it's like just balancing the colors and doing stuff like that. Just try and think of sound in the exact same way. So it has, every sound has a range from like the low to the high. I can't tell if my screen is flipped. So like my left hand is low to me, you know, it's like the low part. And up here is the high part. And every sound is mixed up out of that. So it's like I can turn up the low part and make it sound a lot more like this, or I can turn that down and turn up the high part and make it sound a lot more like this. And you can do that with any sound, right? It's called equalizing. So just think of that as being the sound equivalent of your color correction. You know, like right now, because I got the light coming in over here, I look all washed out and crazy. And then if I color correct a little bit, I look more normal, right? It's cool.
I'm learning so much already.
I'll just fly by the seat of my pants, but you know, I'm just
Yeah.
talking about the stuff that I do, and I think it's all really fun. I'm going to talk in a little bit about a specific case, the last horror movie that I did, because it's really fitting for what you guys are doing. Although I took, you know, a month or 2 months or something to do it, whereas you guys are doing it really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, about found objects. But okay, I want to keep this really straight. So let's see, there's stretching is an easy thing, and you'll see how to do it. If you just like open up Reaper, you're like, oh wow, this is super familiar. It's a blank screen that I can drop audio clips onto, and I can move them around, slide them. And then if you hold something, I think it's like if you hold Alt while you get to the end, your little mouse pointer will turn into a hand like this, and it can just like stretch the thing. And you'll see really quickly that it's like gives dramatic results, you know? And then if you want to go crazy with that, there's some other free software called Paul Stretch, like the name Paul. I guess Paul invented it, and it stretches things really far. So you'll see on the internet like the 24-hour version of Dark Side of the Moon, where it's just literally the, you know, 45 minutes of Dark Side of the Moon stretched out to 24 hours, and it's like, and it's amazing. I've listened to not 24 hours, I've listened to about 10 minutes of it, and it's really, really cool. So Paul Stretch will let you go totally into the stratosphere if you're trying to have like just, I don't know, the monster is coming up and like the people are so losing their minds that it's like everything's just like off to infinity. Stretching, number one. EQ, number two, is like the balancing of the low versus the high. And then there's space, the space around. So like right now I'm talking pretty close to the mic and it sounds pretty good. I'm in a very big room, so if I go farther away, you can hear that I'm farther away. And if I go really far away, you can hear I'm really far away. I got to talk louder. And you hear more of the woof, woof echo of the room. So in sound design and in using the software, we call that reverb. Like it reverberates, like whoop, 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 whoop. You know, and if you go really far with it, it's called echo, 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 where you can hear each separate iteration of the sound. Whereas in reverb, it's like, here's the sound and then here's the new decay. So I could record myself really close up like this and have a really good close sound, and then put reverb on it and say, I want it to sound like it's in a cathedral from far away, from the back of the cathedral. Or I could say, I want it to sound like it's in the forest somewhere. So to do that, there's a specific technology that we use a lot in film that's called impulse response. And this gets a bit complicated, but using it is simple. It's a plugin that you'd load called, in Reaper, it's called Reverb. Like it's Reaper, so all their plugins are like Re-EQ, Reverb. You see what I'm saying? And that one loads up an actual sound, a wave file of a place. So in some place, in the cathedral or whatever, somebody set up a mic far away, and then went to the front of the cathedral and clapped their hand, or fires a starter pistol, or makes some kind of sudden, quick sound like that. This thing captures that, and then you run your new sound through that, and the software kind of puts your new sound where that starting pistol was.
That's amazing. So
It's
like,
unreal.
are there specific places in the world, or is it just like cathedral?
There's libraries that you can buy that would be the inside of a car, the Metropolitan Opera, like across a lake. It would be like in a stormy night. It could be anything. And you can place your sounds in that space, you know.
Wow.
It's tricky, and it's like it kind of depends on how close you are to the mic when you start, I guess. Because if I'm far back from the mic, you're gonna get a lot of my room, and then I'd be combining my room with this other room and stuff like that. It almost works if I'm really close up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But so think about, like, so if you're a horror movie shot in the woods, and then you have the free Reaper software with the free reverb plugin, and you have to do a bit of Googling, maybe do it now before your countdown starts on your horror thingy, right?
Yeah.
But you could find these impulse responses that I'm talking about. Write that down. Impulse response. It's you know, you get your starter pistol is the impulse, and what we record is the response all the way over at the microphone. Look one up for whatever your setting is. So like try and find some forest ones. I've found a bunch of free ones over the years, and then it gets tricky. They're like, oh, you got to dig through some like sciencey websites to get them. And then there's other words, oh, you could buy this patch of them for like $700. We're not doing that, right? But I've got a good forest one that I found that works for that. And I've got, the Metropolitan Opera and everything in between. So, you know, you use it for music. If I play some guitar, then I'm like, I want that to sound like it's coming through a certain kind of amp into a certain kind of jazz club. Like that works too.
Wow, that's
so it's like you kind of start to expand the way you think about sound. Then it's still similar to video. I think I can make parallels to video on this if that helps the way you guys think, because you already think about that stuff. You know, I mean, you can shoot something with like, I saw this demo where there's like a little bit of a green screen. Let's say that projector screen behind me is the green screen, and I just get my face in it and do like some acting. I'm not a very good actor. And then they could make a whole thing around me with a new body and everything, because it's like crazy in the new world how that works. Not during 48-hour challenges, of course, but you know, like that's kind of how it works. So for sound, it's the same. It's like you can capture a sound and then transform that sound. So if you can imagine that whole process, then you have a bigger palette of things you can work with. And so far, we've only talked about 3 techniques for doing it. So just think about like how, like a clap, or me saying boo, or like any of these silly instruments behind me. You know, the Karate Kid, with me on the Karate Kid. That if you were to slow those down, they're like pretty weird. And then you could put some reverb on it, and it would sound like it's far away. And maybe do something like in the software, you can always have ramps and stuff like this on anything that you're doing. You can make it adjust over time. So again, the same as your color correct. Say you wanted it to fade to black. Okay, it's fading to black, and then the new thing's fading in. So in the sound, I don't know, let's say I did exactly what I was talking about. I took that thing, pop, 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 pop. I stretch it out. Now it's boom, 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 boom. What the hell is that sound? And then I put it through the reverb, and it's far, far away. Boom, boom, boom. And then I use a little line on the software. It's called an envelope. I don't know why it doesn't look like, but they call it an envelope. Anyway, and you put that line, and it's boom, boom, and I can make the reverb be getting less and less, so the sound is getting closer and closer. Boom, boom, boom. He's right behind you. Oh no! And that's all with just one simple sound.
Yeah. So I have a quick question for you,
Awesome.
if you don't mind. So do you think, in the context of somebody who's trying to make a score in a day, it seems like either you should record your sound close to the mic and use effects after, or you should kind of try to practically do it, like create reverb naturally, but not both at the same time, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think if you were doing it quickly, what's the easiest route?
Yeah, it's easier to have stuff close to the mic and then mix it in the software. You do have to have some skill at that, but basically, you know, things sound farther away if they're a little bit quieter, if they have that reverb on them, so you get the echo around them, because then it's not so direct like this, but it's more. And then also with the EQ, if you take some of the high down and then it's a little bit more muted and thumpy, it sounds farther away. So those 3 things would work if you're recording close up. EQ, the highs go down. We add reverb for space. We bring the volume of it down. That works for music or for anything else you're mixing. And so then the other sounds that are there, the person who's on screen or whatever can be here, and you can have stuff that you recorded really close, but because of those settings you applied, it's down here in the distance.
Yeah, that is so good to know, because this is something that is like so far away from my area of expertise. And I've done these 48-hour challenges so many times, and sound is always the thing that we leave till last, or that we don't do at all. And so I'm feeling like
It's
I'm,
hard.
I'm going to have a look at this program before next weekend, and just try and get my bearings, because it seems like you describing that you can, using the program, change the reverb level and make it sound like something's getting closer. Like, that's an excellent tip.
Well, there's so like with horror anyway, like, you know, there's, it seems anyway like there's a lot less dialogue in the genre than like a comedy or whatever, right? Like it's just it's all about just building that tension and that suspension, and so it's not as much with dialogue. So you know, sound is going to play a really key role in how successfully you build that tension and
Yeah.
suspense. So I like, Adam, I was wondering, like, reverb is like, I am a bit familiar with it, but like the last time you did a workshop for us last year around the same time, you had some ideas about just things you could use around the house that like you wouldn't think typically sounded all that spooky, but when you pair it with Reaper, that it's can really be, or even just like a microphone, you know, like just sort of some found objects around the house. I don't want to like direct where your workshop is going, but I loved that last year. Hey.
So when we were talking last year, this was in a bowl, right? I had a bowl of bones, and I just started joking around about, "Oh, you're gonna need a bowl of bones eventually in this business, you know." And anyway, it's all jokes here, but like, this was for a specific movie. I'll touch on that. I want to come back to it, but you just made me think a whole other kind of subject I should talk about here. Anyway, this was something I had in mind for a movie. It's like, yeah, you really can use anything. So I just had these bones, and I like boiled them till they weren't, you know, like a hazardous thing to have around anymore. Bleached them in the sun. It makes them really light, and then I attach them to this stick, and I called it Chicken Big, right? And you go like, or you can thump it on things, you know, but it's very ominous, and you can do it like coming and going. So let's simulate the reverb thing we're talking about. So it's far away and come closer. You know, when it's close, it's really crunchy, and you hear it really well. When it's farther, there's more space around it. And yeah, that's what I was showing you last year. Was I had these, and I was just kind of shaking them, and then we recorded that, and I took it through that process I was saying. It's like, okay, let's take the audio, press Alt and hold it and stretch it out, and then add a reverb to it, and then bring down some of the high frequencies with the EQ, the equalizer, and then it just sounds, you know, like a whole new thing. But you get the sense, like, what I love about organic sound is what we call it, where it's like a real thing, is that no matter how much you mess with it like that, you still get that sense of the original item or whatever it is, the sound. Okay, but I think I should kind of sidetrack myself here, because you started talking about, you know, the sound in a horror movie in general, and it's like usually I show up to talk about scoring, but I have been here doing sound mixes for a TV show all day, and I feel like I could help a lot with that too, because depending on what you're shooting for a horror movie, especially a quick run and gun kind of thing, I'm picturing just Blair Witch Project in my mind, like, just sorry, but anyway, that's what I'm picturing. And the problem right away with that is what? Okay, you got your camera, right? And in specifically the Blair Witch, and that, like, there's the camera has a microphone mounted on it like this, and you're running around, you're like, I'm so scared, boom, 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 and that's all you hear is just the thumping of the microphone and stuff, and it's just so annoying, and it makes the whole thing seem really, really cheap, you know, and like, amateur is cool, you know, cheap not so much, right? So, you know, if you are able to have a separate person there with a boom mic capturing the audio, then that way, like, it's kind of, those things have a shock mount on them. You can kind of see the shock mount on this mic here. So, like, if it wiggles a bit, it shouldn't thump around too much. And then, you know, your boom person hopefully has some idea of what you're trying to get out of the scene. So same as like you focus your lens and you're like, okay, now I'm shooting it like right up on Adam's eye like this. Well, geez, the boom should just be like right here then, because you want to hear it so it's close and gross, you know? just forgive me for 1 second, but when it's close, it's a little gross. You know what I mean? Can you see what I'm saying? Okay. So like if the camera is close and gross, the mic is close and gross. If the camera is wide, the mic is wide. And we usually try and have it so that like it's right here. You know, you see like that joke in cheap shows where it's like, you know, that's a joke where the mic kind of pops into the frame a bit. That's because like we're really trying to keep it right there so that it's got the same focus as the camera. And then maybe you're lucky and you have lav mics on too, but like it's not likely, because how are you going to even have time to edit that stuff? If you have a boom mic and you have a lav mic, they're actually recording things at different time, not because of any problem with the equipment, because they exist in different places in the universe. The sound will travel to them at different times. And in order to, like, I know this from, this is what I'm doing all morning, and it's driving me crazy. You have to phase align the audio if you're going to use two mics at the same time. So you see how this is a problem? Like, it's a manual process that you need someone like me who's done it a million times. And I'm doing a 10-minute show here, and it's taking me the whole day to do it, because I got to balance the levels. I gotta, oh man, there's these two different mics, and sometimes the guy turns away from the boom and you can't, and then he's back, right? So that stuff's all a problem for these run and gun shows. I think that you gotta, probably the way I would do it is not have lavs at all and just have someone with the boom who's like really on the ball and is doing what the camera person's doing. You talk to them about it and plan each shot that way. Because then you're going to get it in and you can edit it, and you just got one line of audio that you can edit. You don't have to have someone manually go through each clip and see like, well, this is the boom and it sounds okay. I think I need a bit of lav here to punch it up. I better phase align that word so it doesn't sound like as it's going by. That's the sound of misaligned phase. Is it's kind of like if I'm doing this in front of the microphone, it's like that. It's like the guitar sound that Lenny Kravitz used to use, you know, you know what I'm talking about? That's phase misalignment, and it's awesome in Lenny Kravitz music, but it's horrible in dialogue. And that's what you get when you have two microphones running at the same time at a different distance. And that distance is always changing because I'm acting, right? So that's how you simplify it, is one mic that's not attached to the camera, that a person is in charge of, and they know what the camera person is doing all the time. You get in to edit it, you're just going to like trim the ends of those. And one rule that we kind of have is when we're editing the audio, we try to make every little clip of audio overlap just a tiny bit so that it gets that little crossfade like this, so that one piece of audio is ending and then it's just going down over like, you know, a frame, like a tiny amount of space, but it's fading out and the new one's fading in, because otherwise pretty much any clip of audio that ends at a hard line is gonna pop there, right? And you get that, which again kind of cheapens the sound of the movie. So if you have time, the process would be, you shoot your movie, you got your guy with the boom, he's super tight with every shot, the shot gets wider, he gets wider, someone's screaming, you want it to sound in the distance, he records it in the distance. You don't have to do anything in post then, like, because you're doing all this stuff outside, so it's just like do it naturally with the space of the microphone reflecting the space of the camera. Edit your movie together super quick, oh my god, the deadline. And then if you can, either bring it into Reaper or use it within your video software, can probably do this stuff too. Each clip overlaps by a tiny bit of frame and fades out while the new one fades in, and that way each scene like feels like it flows into the next one, you know. And then like the professional mix job from there is to make all those audio clips like about an average volume level, so that if somebody screams, it doesn't like blow the speakers away, and if somebody's whispering, you can still hear them. And it's like we kind of average that stuff out. We don't really keep it at a natural volume of speech the way you're used to, because you're not in the room with these people, right? You're watching it on a screen, you've got your speaker set to the volume you like. So that gets into like the further concept, which I'll just touch on. I don't want to bore you guys with this. You know, there was a set of standards brought in around 2004 called a bunch of different things. One of them is called dial norm, which means dialogue normalization. So to take it back to the color example, you know, right now, again, I'm too washed out because I'm just not willing to close the blind over there. So we would, you know, do some kind of color on set. You would just close that blind, it'd be fine. But anyway, if you recorded me like this and you're like, well, shit, he looks like that on film now, then you'd have to use some software to like do that. And I've watched Steve Cook down at NIFCO doing that, and he's doing that and looking at the video, but he's also looking at these cool little graphs that are really twinkly and fast moving, and they show the amount of different colors that are in the scene, stuff like that. So the sound equivalent sort of to that is that, you know, we've got the volume of the thing, and you can look at a wave file, and, you know, have you guys watched them? They're like, boop, 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 bah, there's a gunshot, and boop, 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 and there's some whispering, and it's like, they look like that. Okay, but the problem is that's showing you the instantaneous volume, and what we need in the long run for shows and movies, you don't really have to do this for your thing, so I'll get away from this topic in a second. What we need in the long run is an average volume that's pleasing to the audience, and that actually is set to an international standard these days, so that when it cuts to commercial, it doesn't blast your head off anymore either. It's supposed to. I know some channels are still awful about it, but every show should be the same average volume. If I watch Seinfeld and then I watch something that was made, you know, like The Wire and The Sopranos, and something that's made today, like these days, they should all play back at the same average volume, even though the gunshots in The Wire are going to be massive and Seinfeld is going to be in a more narrow band, but the average volume of everything should be the same. So you can do that really roughly, even in your 48-hour thing, just by, you know, you're listening back to it as you go. It's like, wow, this person's whispering. Let's just crank it up. This person's shouting. Let's just turn it down. That's as much as we got time for. Woof. And there's one tool, I suppose, now that I've got myself this far, there's one tool you could use that's like the final smoothener, the butter, to do a bit of that automatically, so that you're not there like tweaking every single word like a crazy person, which is what I do. This thing is called the compressor. And it's free also in Reaper. It's probably in your video software too. I bet there's reverb, equalizer, and compressor already in your video software. So you don't even need Reaper, really. I like it, so I preach about it. So the compressor is like this curve, okay? So our volume comes in like this. So here's a quiet sound, and then here's a loud sound. And when it comes in with no compressor on it, it just plays back at the same volume that it came in at, okay? But when we compress it, the input volume is still the same, like that, but then the output volume is applied this curve. So it's like, as I get louder, there's a maximum volume that I could possibly get to. I'm really angry, and now I'm kind of quiet again, and it just lessens that, what's called the dynamic range, you know, the amount of space of quiet to loud, dynamics, like in music, right? And again, you can see how all this is just a lot like editing video. You're just applying it to sound. Whew. It's a lot of stuff.
Can I ask you a really basic question?
Please do.
Could you talk to us about room tone?
Yeah, room tone.
And I know that might be a very general, like vague thing to say, but I feel like it's something that a lot of people talk about and they don't actually understand the purpose of it or how you would use it.
So when you're editing your clip, depending on your style, and so I keep saying run and gun, like I just expect that you guys are shooting it quickly, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of stuff that I edit, I can hear the director even saying, like, especially in horror stuff, I love it when I hear the director saying scream. No, scream. No, I said scream. You know, and I can hear the director doing that when the person is screaming. It's like, well, I can't use this scream audio, you silly, silly director. What are you doing, right? Because I hear you saying scream louder than I hear them screaming. So room tone, and then in that example, you'd have to go back and get the person to record them screaming again and try and match it to the way they look on screen, blah, blah, blah. You guys know that. Of course, don't talk over the dialogue. Room tone is there because no matter how good you do it, like there's going to be sounds that you need taken out sometimes. And this goes more for stuff that you have time to really do dialogue edit on. It shouldn't be too much of a big deal for what you guys are doing for a 48-hour challenge. But the concept is that we just shot a scene in here in my nice studio, and the microphone is where it is, and I'm speaking where I am. And then I cough a bit and then continue. We want to take that cough out. We would have a recording that's it. And it's the sound of the room. So typically on a normal production, you do like 30 seconds, and like the cast and crew are also there, and you're just like, shut up, room tone time. And if I'm on set recording, I developed this way of being like, it's super passive aggressive. But anyway, it's and I'm slowly counting up like that, really slowly letting my fingers come out. But if I hear a sound, I stop moving, and they notice, right? And I'm just like, that doesn't count, right? And so I'm trying to get 30 seconds of actual just quiet that's in the exact same spot that the scene was just shot in, so that if at the end of the word someone does something weird or whatever that you want to take out, you've got the sound of the scene there, right?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But I was under the impression before, and then I kind of realized that I was wrong, that like room tone is something you should like throw underneath everything. But that's not the case, I guess.
I don't do that. No, because what I do is I add fake backgrounds to everything.
Right.
Like when you're doing a full mix, I guess I should just describe really like what you would do on a big movie, and then we can see if we can figure out how you would apply that to a really quick movie. Like the process is, I edit the sound that you gave me from your shoot. It is invariably insufficient. It's not enough. Whatever you shot on the day, nobody shoots enough, like gets enough good sound on the day. And you hear all this weird stuff like, oh, the camera cuts to this new scene and the sound is a bit different. And now there's a bit of a different hiss because there was a compressor running in the background. There's a fridge running as we shoot this scene. It's turning on and off all through the day. Some of the scenes have it in there, some of them don't. I'm cutting back and forth between with the fridge on, with not the fridge on, with the fridge on, with not the fridge on. So then you need it. Then you need the fridge the whole time to cover those gaps and stuff, right?
Right.
So the idea is that the on-set audio person, is aware of all this stuff and can imagine how the scene is going to be cut together. Hopefully they have time to talk with the director, but stuff's all pretty quick too. Oh, that was a little rabbit hole. Sorry, was there a specific question there?
No, I think, nope, you definitely answered it. Whatever my question was, I don't even know.
I was starting to talk up this new idea. This like, what is the sound mix? And I'm making these shapes with my hands because I can picture the thing in my head. It's these chunks, right? So you got your composer makes music. And for me, if I'm the composer, well, that's like my whole job. But if I'm doing the sound mix, that's a chunk. That's one of the chunks is the music. I paint it green on my mix because I like to look at music as green. Effects are red. I've got effects that you guys recorded or edited into your thing and sent to the sound mixer. I've got the dialogue that's recorded on the day. I do all my work of like smoothing out those edges, like I was talking about. There's no pops at the end of things. So volumes are all really averaged out. I got this line going through, like turning down the shouts, turning up the whispers. Oh my God. And then, using the high and low, the equalizer to balance it all out so that it doesn't sound like every time the camera cuts, like it's really bright and then really dark and stuff like that. We want it to all sound averaged out. Then I do a whole other chunk underneath that, which is made up crap. Like just the show I'm doing right now is set in the bay and in Buddy's car and at his office. And so in the bay, I live in the bay here. So I just have sounds from my microphone from outside. And that works really well for a lot of shows I do. Just lay that in the background. And it's just the sound of Cape Royal in this case, but it could be any part of Newfoundland. It always works, right? I got the ocean from close up, ocean from farther away. This is stuff I've recorded over years of being here. Then he's in a car. Well, I've got like a library of stuff of the inside of a Jeep Wrangler, the inside of a 55 Packard, should you need it, and stuff like this. Like these are just libraries that us sound nerds have. So this all becomes part of that middle chunk that's like fake, but it just is like, because it's not recorded on set in this panic situation, it's just better sound. It's like it's stuff that's recorded with just sound in mind that either I did or that I bought. Like there's people all around the world doing this. If you want to imply that you're like, so you're in a hotel room and you want to imply that it's in Tokyo, that's easy to do because you just go on the internet and you download the free sound of Tokyo. And then you put that equalizer on it and mute the thing so that it sounds like it's outside through the wall and maybe a bit of the reverb so it sounds like it's farther away. You see what I mean? Boom, Tokyo. Put some neon lights in your scene. Tokyo. So any place you want to be, you can kind of do that. I work on a lot of Newfoundland stuff, so I use my own recordings of Newfoundland for that middle chunk. So we got the music, we got the backgrounds, we got the actual effects that you guys have edited in, like, a slide whistle or something if it's a comedy thing, or like a door closing that someone actually, the editor put in before me. You see? And so that's why we call it a mix then, is that I'm balancing, at the end of the day, I'm balancing all those elements, right? And so for right now, I'm doing these 10-minute episodes of these shows for 5 TV, and it takes me usually a full day to go through all those steps, and I'm exhausted at the end of it. It's like, and I've been doing it for years and years. So I'm not saying that you're going to do all that for your thing, but if you can understand that that's what the process is, those 4 kind of chunks, right?
Is there a site you'd like recommend to kind of collect some of those sounds, like Tokyo?
I mean, pretty much Google. Like,
Okay.
there was one guy I found who was doing a lot of different locations in the world. So if you want like a jungle, it could be funny. I don't know. In one of your movies, someone opens, like you see that door behind me, you open that and you can't see through the door, but like all of a sudden you hear the sound of a jungle. Like that could work for some horror stuff. I don't know. Just Google, because there's tons and tons of free stuff. And I think that as long as you're aware of how licenses work, which I can touch on briefly, like it's not that hard. There's a lot of stuff that's set up so that if you're making the kind of movie that you guys are making right now, you're not intending to make profit off it. It's like not quite a student film, but it's like, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, they don't care. They don't care if you use their jungle sound in it. They're not going to like watch this movie ever because they're not part of the St. John's community and stuff. And then if they did, they'd be like, I think I recognize that jungle sound. You know?
Right.
They don't care. They're not Prince. But it's called, let's see now. There's Creative Commons license, I think is the one that you're looking for. CC, it'll say on it. Geez, I could be wrong, but this is another quick Google search that you guys can figure out. If you want to use background sounds, either like long sounds that I call ambiences, you know, so like the long sound of like the ambience of crickets, or of like a busy street or anything like that. Or if you want to use short sounds, percussive things, like you can download a lot of that stuff for free. You got to do a bit of research, you know, and try and get your stuff ahead of time, but maybe you don't know what your movie is until you get into it. So maybe as you guys are developing the script, you're also on Google getting some of these sounds, saying like, we could use these, let's put them in a little folder that's like, okay, we're trying to do something about a car crash. We had no money. We're not going to crash a car. Let's just like shoot this one part of the car and use a sound of a car crash.
Elizabeth, when you've done the horror challenge, you've done it before, right? Like a couple times. Yeah. Have you guys used like someone with a boom mic, or have you have you had that equipment?
It's been different every year that I've done it, but last year I was the one with the boom mic. And as you can tell by my questions, I'm not an expert on sound, but I was kind of like AD and boom mic operator. And it was I think it was helpful in the end, because in other years, we kind of just put like a shotgun mic on top of the camera. And some other years we did like a found footage Blair Witch Project type thing where it was just filmed on a phone and we used the phone mic there. So all kinds of different approaches, but using the boom mic last year seemed to be the best, like you're recommending, Adam, because it was just easier in the editing process.
One compromise that I could live with, if there's just one person, right? So if you just have like one person with the camera and the microphone's mounted on it, if there's a way to have one of these shock mounts, like at least the thing, like especially with the phone, like I can already hear the sound of the movie that you made. I can hear it.
It was.
And it's the person's hands holding the camera like half the time, and they're breathing too. Even if they're holding it out like here, like you don't want to be aware of the person behind the camera too much, right? And like that leaks through in the sound more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So one way is, this thing is called a shock mount. I guess I'll just move it a bit. Sorry if it clunks a bit while I do this. I mean, the idea is that it doesn't really clunk, right? So you see how like this is where we have a firm attachment, but then up here is this cage of springs. Sorry, this thing's in the way. That's just like a pop filter when you're singing. Anyway, see how this suspends it, right? It's like, think of like a full suspension mountain bike. My favorite thing in the world. Okay. So then if you have to do it that way, if you have to have just one person, then it's like, it's at least not feeling those physical clunks, because then you'd have to have someone edit those out, or you just have to live with them. And it's like, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty cool. I did want to talk, I guess, a bit, like, because my main thing is scoring. So I've talked a lot about sound and how that would work. Is there any questions coming in from our audience here?
You've seen anything on Facebook Live, Elizabeth?
I can check too. I haven't been looking.
We have a lot of people come back and watch these after the fact, Adam. Like we live broadcast them day of, and then people will come back and leave more.
Is the one from last year still available somewhere?
That's a good question.
I think it is. I I think it's still on Facebook.
Because I had it working different then, and I showed a lot of the actual software. So, I mean, if people want to dive into like what is Reaper, how does it work? Last year, my subject was more using free drone making software, because we were talking just about music, right? And I was like, well, here's how you could do it if you're not a musician, of like kind of finger painting in the piano roll of Reaper. If you could imagine those old pianos that roll out, or if you saw Westworld, it really shows a good example of that. But anyway, in the software, it's sideways and it goes like this, and you can just paint notes in. And I showed a lot of stuff last year about how to make some scary like scores, droney scores and stuff like that with that.
Yeah, I think we should be able to put that up if it's not up right now anyway, so people can reference that as well. Because yeah, you did a great workshop of just going through just some of those things for like stretching, and just how you could just take a really basic sound and turn it upside down on its head and make it sound.
And there was a bit of screen sharing there too, so you could see how the actual software was working. That might be helpful if you guys want to study that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this one crazy thing I did. So I showed you already. Chicken Bake. This is part 1. So it was for a movie that the Nickel was part of Nickel Picture Start, called Mummering Legends. So horror movie with Grindmind. You guys know Grindmind, grand old fellas. And I think this was their first chance to have a bit more of a budget, and so they really put it into the look of the movie. And it's just like, oh boy, it's so dark, it's so creepy. The costumes, you got mummers kind of set back in the past. I don't want to spoil the movie. It's coming out soon. I really hope you guys go and watch it. But I had a long time to work on the score, and so my main thing is scoring, and that's what you can tell how excited I am right now. It gets me really, really riled up. Let's do some scores. And so I was trying to think, like, how could I make this different? And in the artwork that they had, in their kind of pre-production package, so like, this is the coloring that we're looking for, this is the type of forest location we're looking for. They had all these pictures, and they were using, movies that I love. They had this one called The Ritual with the moose guy with the hands and the memories, if you remember. Pretty good. And they had The Witch with like 2 V's, The Vitch. Pretty good stuff. And specifically The Vitch, I've kind of studied that one a lot. The music in that is tremendous. It's this choir singing in like a kind of satanic language, or I don't even know. Good stuff. And some clangy strings. So it's like, I can play a bit of violin and cello and stuff like this, but it's not enough sometimes. I'm just like, where's the horror? How am I really going to get spooked out here? And I was thinking about how, mummering is all about it's a Newfoundland tradition, and we got us ugly sticks. And so if I can get all this in the frame, I'll get back here for a second. So it's, so like guitar strings just strung over a piece of wood, and then I kind of had some nice wood here that I used for a fingerboard, so you can actually, if you can see it, you can actually press the string in, and so it plays. You can play like a guitar. It's not very loud on its own. Like, to do anything with it, I have to put the mic like up against the board there. But anyway, it's tuned really low right now because I'm. Anyway, let's get right up at the mic and see if I can. No, hold on. Anyway, it's like pretty creepy, and I can play it with the cello bow, and then it's even creepier. I might try that in a minute. But anyway, I just kind of started making these monster instruments because I was just like, how can we push the genre a bit farther? And what I found then is that, right now, I haven't picked it up, so it's out of tune, but I can tune it to just about any note. And it's got 2 strings, so I use, like fifths like you have on a cello, boom, boom. And then you can play it more or less like a cello. And it shrieks and howls. It's really hard to bow it and keep the note constant. It wants to do that thing, like if any of you guys have played any string instruments or know what it sounds like when a child is practicing a string instrument, is that the note that they're playing sometimes goes up an octave by accident. It's like, this thing does a lot of that, like a lot. And it's really hard to control it. So it just makes everything that you play that much more like on the edge. So I kind of wrote some music on the real cello. I'm pointing to it over there, but you can't see it. But there's a cello and the viola and violin. And then once I had all that together, I tuned this guy up. I call this the Violoki. Huh?
It sounds like a nefarious dulcimer or something.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? Okay, this is part of the inspiration over here. Is a handmade Newfoundland old skipper Appalachian dulcimer. It's like kind of a one, like some guy who lives in Paradise who was like 70 or so. His granddaughter was into the Appalachian dulcimer. You know, it's like, oh, that's way out of tune, but it's kind of like, you know, tell my mom when I go home. Yeah. You know, and so he started making these, and I was like, geez, I mean, it's real. Like it's got frets and like a rosewood fretboard. You know, he makes it out of his garage. And so I was like, sure, but I lives in the woods, but I could like slap a few sticks together and make a, you know, the violoki, right? And then over here is the big brother of that is the chelu, like the monster chulu, you know. But anyway, this one's kind of harder to see with the camera because it's huge, but like, you know, it's a bass.
Yeah, wow. Bass
guitar version of that. So that's a big heavy bass string. I'll tune it up a bit so it makes more noise. So it's kind of like a giant gut bucket, you know? And it's like... And if I just... Yeah, I think I will. I'll take a second to grab the violin bow just so I can really show you what I'm doing. I know this is a bit off subject because it's not what you guys are going to do for your 48 challenge. But I like to show, like, if you see, like, the big... vision of what, you know, so like I do this stuff full time, I'm really into it, like a bit too much probably, and then if you can just imagine, you know, like, well, how can we fit some of Adam's ideas into our project? Just one second, I'm gonna grab the bow.
Yeah, totally, Adam. It's like very inspirational, even if someone, you know, won't be able to necessarily make an instrument maybe in 48 hours. This sort of idea of taking normal sounds and skewing them a bit, it's like a bit uncanny or something.
I think that's been like what everybody has really talked about so far today, just like taking what is around you, like just that the genre lends itself well to that, just what taking stock of like the actors that you have, the location that you have, and just, you know, and just like kind of subverting that a little bit. Seems to me that this is the same thing.
Live, you know, do it live, right? Live is best. And so you shoot your scene and then you realize, well, we were all like jumping around and I can probably hear the camera person's feet there, but there was no one spoke. Well, maybe you could also just do the scene again without the camera and just the audio or whatever, one where there isn't crew moving, you know? So if you have a scene that's just people shuffling around and you hear like the crackly leaves because it's autumn now, you know, you'd really want that to be nice. But if you hear that and the camera's moving and you hear extra feet, it's like, you know, so you could take that minute on set if you notice something like that, where it's like, we really didn't get the audio, but that shot was great. You could just take that minute on set to kind of reenact the thing. Because that's what I do for Foley, right? It's like, I bite an apple, right? The guy was biting an apple. I'm doing a tourism scene. And then it's like, he's fishing with a you know, jigging off the side of his boat. So I had a clothesline and I was rubbing it against the back deck there, and I tied a lure onto it, was putting it in a bucket. So it was like every step of what he was doing, I had to redo because obviously they were shooting it in a little dory. They couldn't get those sounds, right? Anyway, okay, indulge me for 1 minute. So this is the cello with the bow, if I can make it loud enough so that you can hear it here. You know, it's really, really mean, right? And see how it squeals? And then... Okay, but anyway, so this is a physical thing, and what I did is I recorded that. I recorded it really close so that it's super, you know, loud, and I'm not hearing a lot of room. I'm just hearing the instrument. Then I put a ton of reverb on it, so there's like blah, 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 very imposing. Then turn down some of the treble frequencies like I'm talking about. Make the bass even more imposing. And then I use another trick that I haven't talked to you about yet, which is sort of like the stretch, but there's a plugin that can just shift the pitch. Maybe you've seen this in guitar stuff if you're into bands like Korn and stuff like that. You know, like they do a thing with a whammy pedal. They hold a note and go boom, wah, boom, but he's still holding one note. Anyway, pitch shifting is what it's called. So you would, you know, I took this and then you hear this plus the even bigger version that I couldn't possibly play. You know, the contra cello, I don't know. So I don't know. I guess we're getting close on an hour.
Yeah.
Kind of summarize a bit or whatever.
Yeah, Elizabeth, like, just like, I know you were saying, like, you've made, you've made the challenges in the past, and like the sound kind of is stuff that you think about a little bit after the fact. Like, I guess between you and Adam, although it's Adam's workshop, but just like maybe like, would you both sort of recommend that you just be trying to pay attention to these things while you're shooting, like thinking about sound, or Adam, like when you do, when you do a film, like when you score or when you edit sound, like you do that stuff kind of afterward as well. So I guess I'm not really sure what I'm trying to ask, but just
I think I know, like,
how to kind of go along with it at the same time, like
okay.
successfully.
Like a lot of times in post, like if you walk into the halls of NIFCO or of any big company and there's posts, they're like, okay, I love these people, and so they're my friends. I'm not trying to talk ill of them, but it's like we're a bit of a grouchy bunch, right? In post audio, because it's just never recorded well enough. Never. So you could be on a Marvel movie, it's just not recorded well enough. If you got that guy Marco Doel on set, then it's probably recorded well enough. He's really good. But like I'm on set recording it, it's not good enough. Matt Thompson, like all of us are great. I really don't want to be saying that anyone's not doing their job well enough. They are. But it's just so complicated to imagine when you're on set, right? What's the movie going to look like? And how should I shoot the sound? Like you're recording the sound, but think of it like just like the camera, So it's like frame it. Don't let distractions in it that you don't want. Okay. You don't want a car going by in the background of your shot. Don't have a car going by in the background of your audio either. So that means, in like a professional situation where you got time to do it, like, you'd say cut, like, I didn't want that car going by. Let's try it again really quick. Okay, go. In your situation, you're just going and you're like, now there's a car in the background, whatever. It's not my artistic vision, but like, so it's a balance of like accepting that it is what it is, but having someone that's paying attention. I guess the biggest thing is like, someone's usually on set with headphones, right? Like great big headphones that prevent them from hearing anything except the audio. So if you have someone who's, superhuman and can like do the camera stuff, look through the viewfinder, have one of these mics that's in a balanced shockproof thing, and have headphones on, and actually be aware of what the final product is going to be when they edit it, like that would be a very super duper human, I think, which is why it's usually split between a group of people,
Yeah, and just to reinforce what Adam's saying, I guess the times that I've made one of these challenge films and have spent the time or given the love to the sound and leave as much time to edit as possible, it has always turned out better in terms of product, but also it's been less of a struggle for the heart as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a complicated, doing sound is as complicated as doing most other things in film, I guess. So it's a whole big world. So I think if I can try and just, instead of leaving people feeling overwhelmed now at the end, maybe we can just summarize some of the main things that you can do on your short film in a short amount of time. So again, I don't know what you're making. I'm imagining that some of these are like woods horrors, and some of them are like cabin or like a small room, isolated horror. Picture a back of a car horror, stuff that you're doing cheap. Okay. So make it sound the way it looks the best you can, and that's just done by, as we said before, if possible, the ideal is there's a separate boom mic and it's really tracking what the camera sees. If the camera's moving around, the boom is following it gently so we don't hear our hand moving the thing, but that it's capturing the stuff. And they usually do say like you kind of shoot the like the chest for voices rather than shooting it directly at the mouth. Is a bit more clicky. Anyway, sorry. That's the first step, is that you imagine how you're going to shoot this so that the sound and the video are just seamlessly matched anyway, like this, and then if you do want to shoot something far away and someone's speaking, someone's got to be there in headphones to know if you got it right, because like you might have only heard the cars going by and not even heard the words that you're doing. And then what are you going to really do in a short film? Go back and do ADR, which is automatic dialogue replacement. You don't want to do it, like the old Clint Eastwood movies. Okay, so that's definitely the first step, is that you're just recording it in a sensible way, realizing, more or less what the end product is going to be like, what the edit is going to be like. Then when you go to edit it, just try and like have everything overlap a little bit like this. If you get like to the end of one clip and there's a horrible thing there, you're allowed to just cut that audio before that scene ends and bring in some other audio or another little chunk of quiet audio from earlier in the scene. Or if you had time, that room tone can come in. So you can replace things, right? But my point is that clips aren't really allowed to end at a line like that, because you just always hear that. They all cross like this. If you have time, then you really balance the levels, bring up the whispers, bring down the shouts, and then listen for, is it boomy? Is it trebly? And think of it like the color correction. So like too bright, bring it down a bit. Too dark, brighten it up a bit. You know, it's the same idea. Treble, bass, or whichever one is. Then, because you're creating something from scratch, you want to see if you can't add these other layers. The other layers are the background ambient sound of just that world that you're in. So if it's a forest, never mind the sound that you recorded. It's not good enough. You need a forest bed that you're going to get off the internet, and try and imagine what kind of forest you're in. Like, we don't have cicadas here, you know, so nighttime, usually in a nighttime scene, it cuts to night and it's like cricket, 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 cricket. But we don't do that. I don't do that on the shows ever, because it's just like, well, you're in Newfoundland, fool. What are you doing that for? So get some, either go out tonight and record the sound of the night and the sound of the day. Like, imagine that stuff, or record it on the day. I don't know. You got to be really ready to move quick on all that, I guess. The main
How would people know that it's nighttime if they don't hear crickets at night?
Right. I use, I've got one recording that I use a lot, which is just called Air. It's air.wave. And it's something I made out here. It's just a quiet night. It's the sound of nothing. And the sound of nothing is different than no sound from speakers, right? You can hear that there's just a bit of an atmosphere to nothing. And maybe there's like a fly goes by the microphone at some point. I don't know.
K-Rock in the distance from a shed or something.
K-Rock ain't nothing.
K-Rock ain't nothing. It's true. It's very true.
Oh, boy. And I guess then to summarize the tools you can use for creative, you know, messing around with audio, whether you do it in Reaper or anything else, the concepts are, you can make one sound and then stretch it so that it's longer, and it can either stretch like tape where the pitch would naturally drop down, or it can stretch, because we're using digital stuff, it can stretch into a slower time while keeping the same pitch. You can compress it and it would do the Mickey Mouse thing and go up really high, or you can compress it and go really fast without changing pitch, like that. Good demonstrations. Yes, so fun. The reverb, you know, you remember reverb, right? It reverberates. It's a plugin you can use in your video software or an audio software to make audio sound farther away. The equalizer is the most important one you're going to use. It's the color correct of the audio world, bass and treble. Keep it simple. You know, the equalizer might look complicated. It's got all these different features and stuff like this, but you'll see a curve there, and whatever change you make, you can see how it draws it on the curve. Just keep it simple. Do stuff like turn up the high, turn down the low, whatever. And, you know, I think you guys will do great. Make your own instruments, you know, do cool
It's like
stuff.
the old stereos with the treble and the bass. Just
That's
like,
exactly what it is. That's the equalizer on your stereo. So the computer just has a more detailed version of that.
Ellen, do we have the footage from last year's Ghoul School that we can?
yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to? But I don't know if I could find it right now.
No,
is that what you're looking for? Yeah,
not at this second, but just like
yeah.
Adam's workshop last year, he's able to like go through the software and share his screen with everyone. So maybe if we can put that up alongside this one, people can reference that to just get a visual on some of the things that he talked about with us today.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I can totally find that. I'm looking for it right now.
There you go.
Well, in the meantime,
Yeah, it's been fun.
That was great. I don't know. I think we probably covered like all kinds of. Yeah, but no, I think like the kind of, again, Elizabeth, you were saying like just the sound, like when you give it a little more love, pay a little more attention to it, it makes a big difference. So I think a lot of the stuff talked about by Adam, a lot of the organic sounds, is that I've been calling it like that.
Yeah, or just any real sound that you then do stuff with in the computer, you know, it's like you can tell that it started as a real thing as opposed to a synthesizer.
Yeah. So there's like, just get creative, people, yeah, check out Reaper because it is free. There's a lot you can do. Like you can get the paid version as well for sure, but there's so much you can
the way
do
it
with
works is that it's all one version. There's no difference between the one that I use and the one that you'll
Okay.
download for free. They just ask that after 30 days you pay for it, but they ask really nice. And really, you don't have to pay for the software till you start using it professionally, more or less. Like, just play around with it. They won't care.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Adam. I have a full page of notes.
I took lots of notes, Adam. I keep taking notes every time I do these workshops. Maybe this will be the year I'm inspired to finally do the challenge. But before that, I have to ask, do you have a favorite horror movie, and what is it?
Yeah. There's the two that I listed earlier, The Vitch and Ritual are pretty great. But like, I can't stop. I've only watched Midsummer once, and it just hasn't left me alone. It's so creepy. But there's a bunch of good ones the past few years, right? Because that one, Parasite, was deadly. Gosh, what was the one that was like, oh no, like, don't go there. The white people are there. It's bad for you. Get out. Get Out was unreal. So scary. When there are people there and they're kind of like, then they kind of break character and they're like, you should run. And then they go back to the thing. I'm sorry, I just did that voice. Never mind. Whoa. You know what I mean? Anyway. And it was very, very scary. Yeah, really scary. That guy, Jordan Peele, directed it.
Oh yeah. Really
I don't know if I have a favorite one. I like to be scared.
You like to be, yeah. I saw, I think that was, Allison was talking about how she saw It. Was it? Is that what that was called? Right? Like when she was like 5 and it just like, it's haunted her entire life.
I've never watched those. I won't do it.
Well, I saw The Birds kind of by accident when I was really little. It was on black and white. It was like on TV, black and white, and it's like it has also never left me like that.
Oh yeah,
this is just a terrifying, and I'm terrified of birds. Thanks to that film. So, anyways, Allison,
my wife's got one like that. She was a little kid, and her dad would just like let her watch whatever just to give everyone else a hard time. And she watched Children of the Corn, and she was like 5. And she said like she wasn't scared about like that there was blood on screen or anything like that. She was just like, where are the grown-ups? Like, who's making pancakes? And she said that really messed her up for a long time.
Oh man. Yeah, Elizabeth, Elling, you want to chime in with a favorite film you want to recommend to people, and then we'll let everyone
Gosh, the pressure's on. Hereditary is a good horror movie that's like truly terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Vitch or the Witch, and I think that's one of mine. It's like so weird and so well acted and so much texture and atmosphere and like great sound and great, just
when I'm working with some of my friends in the horror world, if we do something really good, then like I'll just start going, Black Phillip. That movie is such a reference for everything that we do, like the Newfoundland horror, because it's like you're in the woods, you're trying to set things in an older time usually, and just it's a very clear reference for that. One indulgent horror movie, if you haven't seen it, is Dead Snow, but it's in German or whatever. It's called Dod Snow, and it's like Nazi zombies in the Alps.
That sounds terrifying.
They don't want you to take their gold, so
no.
Oh my God.
No. No, God.
It's super cheesy and indulgent, but it's like it's better than like Sharknado or something. It has a bit of an arc to it.
Nice. All right, well, I guess that concludes Ghoul School for this year. Thank you, Adam, and thanks Elizabeth and Elling, and to Mike Farty and Mike Hickey and Allison Kelly. Everybody, get out there and make a challenge this year. It's October 8th to the 10th, and you can go to the nickels.com. Nickel Festival? What is it? I don't even know.
Nickelfestival.com.
Nickelfestival.com.
That's our website.
and sign up there. And yeah, hopefully you learn lots today, and we'll put these up online so you can go back and have a look at them. And yeah.
And tomorrow we have a marathon screening of horror challenge films from 2012 on up to 2020. There's 117 films that we're going to be showing tomorrow. from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. Hopefully that jives with YouTube. We don't get taken down because it's showing too many horror films or something. But it's gonna be amazing. These are all films made for the horror challenge, the Nichols 48-hour horror challenge over the years. So much creativity and love for and fun and ridiculousness and gore and scares and all that stuff. So check it out.
Cool. All right, well, I'll sign out, but I'll play you guys out with the spooky sounds.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, good,
Imagine this,
good
but
plan.
slower. See, because you stretched it and you put your reverb on it, so it's farther away.
Some drone.
Nice seeing y'all. Take care now.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.